Hey everyone, and welcome to the Landlord Studio customer story section. This is all about showing the insights from our community so that you can learn to grow your real estate business and build long-term wealth. Let's cue the intro. So before we jump into today's episode, make sure you just hit that subscribe button below so you can get notified of every episode that we release. And in today's episode, we're going to be interviewing one of our special customers called Nick. How are you going today, Nick?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me on your show.
Not a problem. Appreciate you joining. It's always great to get new customers on board and learn a bit more about them. So I'd love to dive into a bit about your real estate journey, some of the struggles that you've had, maybe some of the accomplishes you've had as well. So tell us a bit about how you started investing in real estate.
Okay, so I currently have 3 properties and I'm working on building more. But I initially got started about 7 years ago when I bought my first home. Initially, I bought it to live in, but I ended up deciding to rent it out eventually. Now, home rentals is something that a lot of my family members are involved in. My great-grandfather rented houses. He had like 25 houses. My grandmother rented houses. My uncles rent houses. My dad has a rent house and also another rental business. So, but nobody in the family was like, Nick, you need to start doing renting houses. Nobody actually said that, but I saw all my family members doing it. So when I finally got a job where I can afford down payments and whatnot, that's when I started to follow in my family's footsteps. And then once I dove in it by myself, then that's when the family started giving me advice and was like, okay, well, you should do this, that, and the other. And so then I got a second property. My second property was a section 8. It used to be called Section 8. Now it's the voucher program. It's low income. And I know Section 8 tenants get a bad rap. They say that, they're going to tear up your property and this, that, and the other. They've actually been the best tenants I've ever had. It's very hard to get on the voucher program. It takes years to get on the voucher program. And it's very easy to get kicked off. So the tenants on the voucher program are a little more likely to take care of the property so they can stay on the program, right? My third property was a bed and breakfast, which is East Downtown Houston. It's about a mile away from where the Astros play. It's a mile away from where the Houston Rockets play, and the Houston Dynamo, the soccer team. It's very close in proximity, so it gets a lot of business for like that crowd, that sports crowd and whatnot. People coming into town for concerts and whatnot. And so far, that's been my most lucrative investment. The bed and breakfast.
Nice.
And also, like on the Landlord Studio app, how there is a section for Airbnb, like one-time rentals, and so it makes it very easy for me to go into your app and categorize, what type of rental, how long they're staying, and the price of the Airbnb for the night and the fees and whatnot. So yeah, that's right now, currently, those are the 3 properties I have, but I intend on buying more properties. These are going to be my retirement plan.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the time I'm 60, I have 20 some properties paid off, so when I'm retired, I'm just collecting rent checks.
I really like that, actually. It kind of feeds well into one of the questions I had was like, what was your initial goal when you started? Like, what were your long-term vision or plan for investing in real estate?
So my long-term goal was to set up a nice retirement plan for myself. That's just in case the 401k tanked, and you never know what the economy is going to do, or how the stocks are going to play out when it's time to retirement. When it's time for retirement, you don't know what happens. So I wanted to invest into real estate as an additional source of income for when I'm in my older age. And I figured if I start acquiring them now when I'm in my 30s, long-term goal is, when I'm 65, I have like 20 some properties, hopefully all of them paid off. If not, I can use the pension from my full-time job to pay the rest of them off, and then just sit back and collect rent checks.
Yeah, I love that.
At least that's the long-term goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. I always like listening to our different communities' kind of origin stories and the reasons why they do it. And yeah, it's really, really inspiring to kind of hear that you're investing for that long-term position, and also thinking about, like, what are the possibilities of the 401k going down, and how do I kind of navigate that situation and work around that. How important, or what advice particularly would you give kind of new real estate investors or people wanting to get into this? What advice would you give them?
I would highly suggest just diving in. Find a property that is in your price range. Get it fixed up. You're not going to know everything. You don't have to be a genius to get into this. You don't have to know every ins and out, because most of what you learn, you're going to learn being a landlord. It doesn't matter how many landlord books you read, how many real estate books you read. You're going to learn a lot more about the business when you're in the business. So
yeah, totally.
I would highly suggest you just, if you can find, just get your feet wet, start off with maybe a small property, fix it up, rent it out, and just jump right in. Like I said earlier, real estate has been the best investment I've ever made.
Nice.
Right now, that's the smartest thing I ever did with my money. And the returns on one property, though you're only making $300 or $400 a month each property, but the more properties you accumulate, the more money you make, right? Yeah. And then what's really interesting to me is the equity in the homes on the back end. So my first house I got for $189. I bought that in 2012. Now it's currently worth $310,000. So it made a significant jump in property value. The Section 8 property, my low income housing, I bought that for $55,000. And now that one's worth $110,000, right? So that one's doubled in price, in value. That one has doubled in value. So it's not, you want to think past just the few $100s that you make in each property a month, and think about the equity on the back end, because that's really where a lot of the money can make your portfolio look really nice, is the equity in the houses. Yep.
Yeah, totally. I think that's really interesting. One of my questions was, what was kind of happening in your business when you decided to look out for a solution like Landlord Studio, and like what were the problems that you were going through at the time?
Well, when I first started out, I had a basic spreadsheet. I was like using Excel, Microsoft Excel. I was making my own little formulas in there to help me out. And, iPhones have all these apps. They have just about an app for everything, right? So I was like, you know what? Instead of using the spreadsheet, let me do some research and see if there's some type of app that can help me manage my properties, some type of property management app. And after looking at a few of them, I landed on the Landlord Studio app. I think it may have been called something else before. I think I may have changed it.
Yeah, we used to be called Property Buddy, which was quite a few years ago, and then as we kind of transitioned into full cloud, so being available online and on the phone and on the browser, we kind of changed the name and it evolved into what is now Landlord Studio. Yeah.
And Landlord Studio is one of my favorite apps, top 5 favorite apps. I use it every transaction, every business transaction. Every time I collect rent, I'm using it. It also has a place on there where I can upload my lease, my documents for each tenant. I mean, it's the best app that you can use as a landlord.
I appreciate it. Appreciate that a lot. So what would you actually say to someone who's on the fence about using Landlord Studio or a software like ours to manage their property?
Give it a shot. I mean, that's what I did. I didn't know a lot about property management or property management apps at the time. But after using Mr. Logan's app here, it really organized the way I manage my business, made things a little more efficient. I can see exactly how my properties are doing, who's late on their rent, what my income is for the month, what my income is for the last 12 months. It really has a nice breakdown of all the income and expenses on all your properties. And at the end of the year, you can print out a report of all your income and expenses for your taxes. So when you do your business taxes, you can just show them your little printout from Landlord Studio, and it makes it a lot easier for your tax accountant to help do your taxes at the end of the year.
Yeah, totally. And I guess one of my last questions is, how important is it for landlords that are self-managing or even have a property manager to make sure that they have very clear oversight and are very clear about their income and expenses and them tracking all their finances for themselves?
Yeah, it's extremely important. Of course, if you're going to get into any business, you need to know your income and expenses, right? And Landlord Studio has a excellent spreadsheet on there, and they print out reports for you. And you need to keep up with every transaction that you make with your properties, whether you buying light bulbs or if it's a big expense, like maybe having to change out a water heater or something like that, you can put all of those. And Landlord Studio even have categories for the expenses, whether it's, is it a property management expense? Is it a home repair expense? Is it a maintenance, a cleaning expense? It breaks everything down for you. So it can makes everything really easy and very efficient.
Yeah.
When you're trying to organize all your paperwork.
Awesome. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me on this story today. Thanks everyone for listening in today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below, and we'll see you for the next one. Appreciate it, Nick, and I hope you have the great rest of your week.
Okay, you too, Mr. Logan. Thank you. Thank you for having me.